let's talk about the war in Iraq, and in particular about the role of non-state actors. ISIS is the most famous, but it's not the only one. What's the possible outcome of this war? Can Iraq be split into different countries or become a lawless, unruly land for many decades?
Well, I think in the first instance, one has to understand where the problem is. You have to identify the problem so that you can look for the solution and try and extrapolate the results. As far as the problem is concerned, there are the external view, the UK, the US, Europe, and other than the Iraqis, they see the sole problem lies with, or the problem lies solely with ISIS. In fact, the Iraqis themselves, regardless of their allegiance or their sect, ISIS is not really their problem at the moment. Their problem are the sectarian militias, which is killing people, which is abusing people, which is torturing people. Their problem is the insecurity of the country, explosions and terrorism and what have you. Their problem is the bombing, which is coming from both the Iranians and the Americans and the Iraqis. So the internal problem is not an ISIS one.
Okay, but ISIS is a sectarian militia.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. But ISIS is a terrorist organization, which is a dictatorship in its nature. If you do not cross swords with them, then you're safe. If you don't do the things they tell you not to, or if you don't do the things they tell you to, then you don't have a problem with them. Of course, they limit your movement, they limit your freedom, they limit your expressions, everything. But you are safe. With the militias, you don't have to do anything or not to do anything to be killed or to be tortured, because it is based on sectarian. ISIS is a sectarian movement, and the other militias are sectarian as well. But ISIS is not killing on sectarian basis, because they are killing Sunnis as well as Shiites. They are killing the people who oppose them, who take a position against them. The other militias don't do that. They kill people simply on sectarian grounds. Now, if this is the problem, then I think unless the government in Iraq begins to be inclusive, to let all the Iraqis be involved in it, which has been called on a number of times, but they are not doing it. Unless there is this inclusiveness, there will continue to be the divide, and as long as there is a divide, the sectarian issues will continue to be there. As far as Iraq dividing into other countries, and what have you, I personally do not think so, for a variety of reasons. There is the geography which determines that, there is the people which determine that, and there is the current situation there. And I don't think it is possible. Maybe some forces are working toward that one, whether it's the Kurdish people, or whether some of the Shiites or some of the Sunnis or the Americans. Certainly, I think the biggest problem we have is the American problem, because America, as far as they are concerned, Iraq is not an Iraq. Iraq are Shiites, Sunnis and Kurds. They have the Shiites and the Kurds, and they have been for the last 13 years looking for the Sunnis.
Do Iraqis miss Saddam Hussein and his regime?
Well, in answer to this one, I can only quote Ayad Alawi, who is one of the senior political leaders, and Hadi Al-Amiri, who is the leader of the militias. And they both said that we have reached the point, I'm almost quoting, they said, we have reached the point where people in Iraq are looking back at Saddam's time as a better time.
When you talk about militias, I suppose you mean especially the Shia ones. What's the role of Iran now?
It's absolutely crucial. Many of these militias started in Iran. They are backed by Iran. They are financed by Iran. They are led by Iran. We have Qasem Soleimani, who is the general in the Iranian army that is wanted on the terrorist list. He is leading these militias. There are 60 militias. They are every single one of them is a Shiite militia that is backed by Iran, from financing to leadership to backing by the government. On top of that, the government itself is an Iranian-inspired government.
And Israel is somehow involved?
Well, I would be very surprised if it isn't. If I were an Israeli, I would do everything, because this is the opportunity to destroy that country, which we have animosity with historically as well as the present time. So I think there is some element, but there are enough criminals around. You don't need some more.